everyone. This is Lee Andrews from Academy, and today with me I have Jason. And I asked him specifically to speak to the audience about where he is in his UX career, how he got to where he is, and where he is actually today. What he's faced with, going through some challenges of his own. So let's get started. I want to also do some quick housekeeping things right now. And we are being live streamed on YouTube and LinkedIn. So if you have any questions, go ahead and comment. They should be popping up in front of us, and we will be happy to have Jason field those questions for us. So let's get started. So, Jason, here we are.
Mm-hmm.
Your career has taken a wonderful, graceful climb up. And I'd like you to talk to us about that, from where you started in design to where you are in UX, and then we'll move forward on what's happening. So talk to me about how you even got into this space.
Okay. Sure. Thank you. Thanks, Lee.
Are we having some? Yeah, there we go. Sorry about that. Yeah, it looks like we had a little glitch there, but go ahead.
Yeah, we had a little blip. Anyhow,
okay.
I was pretty fortunate. I went straight from meeting a person while in college to driving over to Detroit to interviewing and getting a job offer before I finished school.
Wow.
I went right into J. Walter Thompson, working on television for Ford. And I spent about 4 months in Detroit because they promised to move me to Chicago. And I've been here ever since. Thank you. The general way my career has went is I've always been an artist, a designer, and a person who liked to reach people with emotions. I partnered up with copywriters and became a pseudo copywriter, at least headlines, maybe not body copy, but I always had appreciation for that part of the craft. Those things and having a particular interest in what the planners do also led me to being more maybe strategic, or maybe more thoughtful, or more interested in that aspect as well. Those sort of things took me into leaving J. Walter Thompson and working on car commercials and beer commercials and macaroni and cheese, and working for healthcare. I thought, well, that might be more meaningful, more poignant, more value to me. I started on a cancer drug, worked a little while, realized that was pretty much the same thing to them as selling cars or beer or macaroni and cheese, and still felt like I wanted something with a little bit more meaning. I had done a lot of web and kiosks and interactive design. And as that was starting to branch into, apps and iPads and things like that, I found a more satisfying place there. That thing that I had from the beginning of wanting to understand people, digest a brief, and reach them is the same thing that user experience is, from the put yourself in a human-centered perspective. I went from a couple of design agencies in Chicago to Fjord and Accenture, so big consultancies. Primarily, it was strategic in that standpoint because I had seen a lot of ad agencies lose business to them. A big agency would win a client, $100 million client. 2 years later, there's layoffs and all these sort of things. I thought, oh, well, these consultancies hold on to businesses longer. What is their secret formula? So I went to one of those, and I learned a lot more around the methodology and the organization. What was typically to me was more free-flowing organic thought and brainstorming became design thinking and methodologies and organization of that. Almost done. At Accenture, one thing that I did was I got to raise my hand and take part in the emerging technologies. And I became, for about 3 years, until I left, I became the face of all of our emerging technologies as we would show them to clients, C-suite visitors, type things like that. So it was everything from virtual reality, augmented reality, voice, IoT, artificial intelligence while doing my regular job of service design, design thinking, and being a visual designer or design director. That's pretty much where I'm at.
Wow. So let's take a those are some big jobs. So the job that got you a lot of face time in front of clients was sharing emerging technologies that were coming out of the agency / Accenture. So why do you think you were chosen to do that? Because I think that's a job that a lot of designers aspire to achieve.
Well, I think it came from being confident, comfortable talking in front of clients already. I was really fortunate. Even before I got to go to J. Walter Thompson, while I was in college, I worked at a place. I was just like a junior art director, brought in some ideas for a pitch. They didn't like them. They said, come to the meeting anyhow. Got to the meeting, realized they were at their third time up to bat and were losing this pitch. The creative director turned to me and said, Jason, you brought your ideas, right? Let's share those. Well, I hadn't, because I listened. But what I did was I just flipped over a piece of paper and started drawing out my concepts for a website for them, upside down across the table from the CEO, and we kept the business. So that kind of stuff allowed me to get to pitch to HBO and other things before I even got out of college.
That's amazing. So that's a lot of hiring managers' argument that experience is, more important. So it's really results in what you do, that it's more than anything. So let's talk about, and you've got some name brands in your portfolio. Mm-hmm. So job well done. So did those things happen to you, or did you direct your career choices throughout that process?
I directed my career choices as far as following the things that I enjoyed. Mm-hmm. Like I said, story, emotion, something meaningful, and challenging too, because I am a bit of a jack of all trades, but mm-hmm. I understood print and guerrilla advertising and planning and all those sort of things I mentioned before as like an opportunity to take the medium further. One of my favorite print ads were a set of billboards for California Pizza Kitchen back in like 2002, 2003. And they placed a billboard above on the highway in LA, like above a place where there was a psychic below. And then I forget what the language was on it, but it was basically said she knew you would order the chicken pizza or something. I thought, how freaking clever is that? So that's what I enjoy. The combination of taking technology, medium, and connecting them all with some kind of a message that's going to reach a person. So yes, I drove my decisions and career choices, but a lot of other things drove it too. Opportunity, layoffs, frustrated with bosses, things like that.
Well, speaking of layoffs, here we are. Mm-hmm. Are in, some say we're coming out of a pandemic. Others are saying that we are getting a breather from a pandemic. And then others are saying, let's gear up for the next round. So how has COVID affected your career right now?
It has, I'm going to say it positively affected me in that I wasn't super happy where I was. I was on part of the team I was part of the leadership team that was aware of our losses. Mm-hmm. And even though I was aware, I was still a little bit surprised when I was chosen to be one of the people let go. Mm-hmm. So that's, anytime that happens, it's a punch in the gut or whatever. But I knew what to do. I don't even think I'd been off the phone with them 10 minutes because this was during, late April. So it was one of these kind of calls. But I went to LinkedIn. I started searching for jobs. I realized that my head was spinning and I needed to write everything down. And I did just that. And it's still up on my whiteboard right over there. It's a list of all the things that I have to do, short-term and long-term, to, keep my sanity. I know it's going to get busy and it's going to get hard at the end of the day to remember where I even applied.
Right.
So I would look up jobs. I would start to apply. I would look at the companies that had those jobs and find people that I knew, or somebody knew a person who knew a person, and try to get in that way. I kept them on my phone, and then at the end of the day, I would go over it all again in my head, make sure that I'd written everything down. And after a couple days, I made a spreadsheet. And when I would post, I also did a lot of networking, not just direct to people, but I actually made my own ads. I made my own little post ads and put them on LinkedIn that basically looked like old network connection errors, like you might get with the Google dinosaur or the things. And they would look, for all intents and purposes, like those, but it would say, can't reach your connection or can't reach your network because you haven't liked or thumbed up or whatever mine. So I use my skills to help myself.
That's awesome. How are you tracking results on all of your activities?
Yeah, and they're hit and miss. They're one time I posted straight up the ad itself because it shows up larger on click. So at a glance, you'd see the whole thing. And then a couple days later, I posted it, but I linked it back to my portfolio and it cut it off a little bit. And I think I had better hits with the one that was on, that was just purely the post, but I had a lot more traction on my website. So I have to go with the one that's taking people to my website, to my portfolio.
Nice. So this is interesting. So here you are, you're a leader within the design community. You have structured teams, you have structured capabilities, you have a portfolio that has pedigree in it, and you were affected by COVID. And so you have not rested, though. The day you get the notice, that day you are active trying to find your next opportunity. And the reason I want to say that this is so important is because earlier today, I was telling Jason before our call, earlier today, I spoke with a woman who could not see beyond the moment, that she wanted to end her life, that she could not cope with exactly what it is, the news that you heard, Jason. Instead of getting her to move forward and motivate her, it brought her down. And so I want to take a moment now to say that if you are not of Jason's mindset, who is just determined to keep moving forward and doing, it's just an innate quality of who he is. It doesn't mean that he doesn't get down and thrown a punch every now and then, but he just keeps getting up and doing what he knows needs to be done. But if you are in that mindset, please reach out to us, or reach out to anybody that you know before doing something that you shouldn't be doing.
Absolutely.
Let's talk about that emotional roller coaster.
Well, that's exactly what I was going to say. It is absolutely a roller coaster. There are going to be high days and low days. And even though I have, and I think my spreadsheet's right now at about 60 places that I've applied to, contacted people, have second calls from. I in one sense, if I just say it this way, it sounds really good. I have 7 places that I'm at least to a second interview or beyond.
That's wonderful.
And I have one that, speaking of roller coasters, I have one that I started yesterday. So I'm super excited and over the moon. It's contract work, but it's with the idea that more will come. And because it's a large consultancy, there's a lot of paperwork that has to go through. I got a call about 40 minutes before this that, hey, we're going to have to pull you off this project until we get your email and other stuff set up. We'll put you right back on it as soon as we can, but we've got to pull you off this one. So, yeah, that sucks.
So what do you do? And by the way, this is rated not for children.
Yeah, I can say other words. Well, what I did was I went downstairs and I vented to my wife, and she looked at me and just went, okay, they still want you. Don't worry about it. And I was, took me a little bit of time to get my head around that. But I get right back on it. I came up here. I knew last night that there was somebody from another place that I applied to last week. It was on my LinkedIn profile in the evening, and I queued up a letter. I was about to write it, but then I got about 5 minutes before this thing, and I thought, I'm also going to follow one of my rules, and that's don't do anything in haste. So I'm going to finish that message to this person after the call, because doing things in haste doesn't help you.
No, you'd think I'd learn that by now. No, no, that is job searching. Boy, it teaches you a whole other level of patience, doesn't it?
Yeah, it does. And it also goes to a point I know we were thinking of talking about, and that is as anybody, not just designers, as anybody that's trying to see themselves completely, we are really close to our story. We are too close to our story to
Yes.
get the perspective that other people might have of us and of how good it is. You know, this person you talked to this morning, she's way close to her story, and she should, call me. I'd be happy to talk to you. I'm sure you've got a lot of great things going for you.
Yes. And that's one thing we are going to work on. And I agree with you. I think that realizing your own story does help you kind of snap out of things. Hey, I'm better than I thought I was.
Mm-hmm.
But too close to yourself, you can't look at things objectively, let alone give yourself praise, right? And see what's good. All you focus on is what's not so good. So let's take one step back before we get into the storytelling. So you've got 7 different opportunities in front of you with second levels of activity. Mm-hmm. How are you going to choose your next career path, your next job inside user experience, inside the design domain? What's your criteria?
Well, Mike, I have 2 sets of, well, 3 sets of things. So I'm very planned out in my head, at least. I have the places that I applied for short-term, I can do this kind of work, fills in my skill set. I'm happy to roll up my sleeves, do whatever. I have some that are like outside of what I'm doing right now, but more in the things that I love to do more of, like virtual reality, augmented reality type things. Because there's one place that I'm talking to that is solely augmented reality. I'm like, oh, that would be great. But then there are the ones that are like long-term career that I really, weigh. And I weigh them on which one's going to help me. I am 45 years old, and I want to be able to spend the next 15 to 20 years doing something that I'm finding more growth in, more value in. Augmented and virtual are certainly things that are going to be there. But, the same way that I was, 23 years old, 24 years old, not wanting to get pigeonholed into making TV commercials, I'm always interested in what else is out there. So,
right.
So you're constantly, and then one of them was too far away, and I didn't want to uproot my family, but it sounded amazing. It was imagining. It was for, I can't say the name of the company because it's still a roll out there. It was imagining the role of autonomous vehicles.
Oh my!
For one of these car makers. And to help set up a place that they do that. I guess that's as specific as I can be, but it sounded amazing. I just couldn't move.
Excited sitting in the chair. Wow. and yet you're going to walk away from that because of your criteria. It doesn't match your criteria. That's good career management. That is good career management, knowing what you want and walking away from what you don't want.
Yeah, I've got kids in school. I don't want them to middle school. I don't want to screw that up.
That's really hard to do, right?
Sure. Yeah, yes, I've passed, and that wasn't an offer to me yet. It was just, hey, do you want to go further with his interviews? So I don't want to sound like I'm throwing away something that other people would want. But yeah, I've passed on a few things in my life that would have taken me too far away. It would have been awesome, but I got to do what is right for me.
There you go. So I'm gonna detour the conversation before we get to your story. I do want to ask you a question that we did not discuss. I am curious. You come from a creative background, and then you moved into user experience, and so there is talk about, a lot of people are very concerned in the user experience domain that user experience is being too watered down. And what are your thoughts on that in general?
I tend to, I can see the perspective. I am not, and I'm just very upfront about it when I come to a place to work. I am not the academic sense of user experience. I am more the in the moment. We as humans understand what happens when you touch a device, when you swipe, when you come up to a kiosk and it doesn't let your card come back out to you. Those sort of things. But I did sit on one of your meetups a couple of weeks ago, and I heard two people had really strong opinions, and I felt like I was squirming into my seat. It's like, oh yeah, they wouldn't like me. But I think they would. I think they would, because I'm not proclaiming to be the deep researcher. I'm the big picture. I run things from one end all the way to the other. I am an artist. I've drawn all my life. In school, I drew logos and soap and things on store windows. I'm that person.
You're the creative.
What's that?
You're the creative director.
Yeah, exactly.
From start to finish is the creative director.
Yes, and I think that it didn't frustrate me. I don't know if it bothered me, but I feel like when I'm talking to people that are more, and I don't know the academic's the right word, but by the rule, it requires deep research and all these type of things. I feel that those people are creative too, and I don't want. I mean, I look at that as a badge of honor to say I'm a creative director. But when I've been at other places, large places with like over 1,000 designers, there were lots of conversations, and not arguments, but concerns when we would reorg and change titles. It's like, well, I'm not a creative, but I'm not a designer, but I am a creative, and they're calling me a designer. All these, and not that those two should be any different, but there were people that felt that way. Yeah. So I think that we are in a place where so much of what we do in the last 15 years has evolved and grown and dispersed from art director writers sitting together or human-centered design, or any of these things, that it's converging and coming apart. Some places need the deep research. Some places need I need the big idea. I also need you to be able to take this and understand how people are and have empathy for them. And that's where I come into this, is because I still have empathy for the people that I was writing commercials for and reaching and those type of things. So, yeah. But I hear you.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like there is a you make the distinguishing characteristics, though, the hardcore researchers and testers, right? Sure. That practice, and that really is the crux of user experience, right? The research and the testing. The other part of it is envisioning, getting that visual capability, and then bringing it to life, which is design and development, execution on that. So I think that's a really great way of looking at it, and I like the way that you at least admit the fact, right? That you're in this user experience research and testing mode, but you understand it. And you know when it's needed, when that deep research is needed, and testing on your products, which I'm sure adds to your the attraction for you, right, to employers, because you are able to blend those two worlds together, right, and know when what is needed. Does that make sense? Are we frozen again? We might be having technical difficulties. Jason? Oh, please come back, Jason. Jason's coming back. There he is. Looks like okay, let me get rid of the other Jason.
Okay.
Okay, there we go. So did you hear what I had said?
I did, and I was starting to reply by saying I do, and I also supplement any role with those, if we're in something that needs that. Yeah. I know lots of people that do that.
Yeah, I think that's great. So let's get to how you and I first met, was through the storytelling piece. Mm-hmm. So how easy was it to tell? We've got about 5 minutes left. Okay. How easy was it to craft your own story by yourself?
Oh, by myself, it was hard because it was long and winding, and I'm kind of my philosophy is I need to be able to tell it in like the elevator pitch, the 3 minutes top version. And I also know that as a creative, I'm more excited about and more wanting to tell the parts that are playing to those emotions. It grabs somebody, it moves somebody. It's different than anybody's ever seen before. But a lot of what, the feedback and the course that we were going through was like, okay, so how much money did it move? How many people did it impact? Those kind of things. And those are really important too. When I started to write that all out, I felt it was too long. But when talking to you, you're like, yeah, but you don't tell that whole story every time. You have that and you use this part for these people and that part for those people. And that made perfect sense because I've done that my whole life with, if I'm trying to pitch an idea with my partner, he and I or she and I are working through ideas and I'm telling it in the way that they would receive it.
Right.
And then I have to sell it up to the larger team and then sell it over to the client. And maybe the end user or the audience at the end is absolutely the one it was built for in the first place. So that's my ultimate priority. But I have to take all the stakeholders and everybody else's thoughts into consideration and make it important for them too.
How easy was that? How easy was it to go through the PAR methodology that you and I walked through to get to that point?
Sure. I would say with a couple of rounds, it was a lot easier. But the PAR methodology was great. It's just problem, action, result.
Yep.
Got it. That's great. It takes a lot of the sprawling out of the conversation.
But still, even when you have it, that methodology seems simple, but as you dig down into each section, it requires a lot of thought. So fortunately, you've got a strong sense of business acumen. And I think a lot of that came from your very early start on advertising, right? So advertising either hit the mark or it didn't hit the mark. Sometimes in the design domain, including user experience, we don't always get those end results all the time, nor do we always understand. I mean, hopefully the research and the testing will reveal the real problem, right?
Right.
Oftentimes, clients aren't willing to work towards solving the real problem. They're solving the symptoms. So that's where building that story, I think, becomes challenging. So how has developing your story helped you in your job search?
I think it's helped a lot. I certainly have notes that are on my screen that I'm looking at and even though it looks like I'm looking at the camera for this level right now, because I've broken them out by, PA and R. But it's always helped my job search in that when I'm face to face with somebody and I can communicate, I build a little bit of a rapport, I build a relationship. I start off with the big flowery cool idea, but I make it really impactful by the ending. By the one I'd shared in our class, we helped a company reimagine their entire business, and it won my company a $20 million account.
That's huge.
And secured jobs and secured that company, their employees.
Yeah, that's huge. What about if you're trying to pitch internally? How does storytelling differ from trying to get a job versus trying to get funding or get key stakeholder buy-in on a project? That's a whole different
level. Yeah. And sometimes with the actual buy-in, the funding, I do need to rely a lot more on business analysts and people to prove out that this can stand up. And then I can help sell that story and tell that story. I know we're almost out of time, but I bring design into it to simplify it. I take really complex things and I visually simplify them. Nice. And I've got a couple of exercises that in front of the client or on a whiteboard, in just a matter of a few minutes, I can connect those dots.
So you're really pulling all of your skills into your ability to get people to move along. I heard the word sell a lot in that last 30 seconds. So are you telling me that designers have to learn how to sell?
Yeah. Oh God, yeah.
So selling the work that they do or selling somebody else's work, or what exactly are we selling?
Oh, maybe sell's not the right word. Maybe it's believe in your idea and convince other people.
Yeah, that's what I'm thinking. All right. Well, Jason, our 30 minutes is up, and I certainly appreciate it. If people wanted to get a hold of you, how can they do that?
They can find me. Should I put it in here? Or,
you can put it in the comments, or
Jason R is in Richard Lung, Lung at Gmail. And you can also find my website, cultivate-ideas.com.
Okay, hold on. I got one. The other one is Cultivate Ideas.
Yep. Cultivate then ideas.com.
Okay. I got it. I will put that. Yes, business goals. Now all the comments are coming through. So, yes, Jason is a great storyteller, business goals, all that good stuff. All right. Well, thank you, Janine. Is it Janine? Does she go Janine or Janine? I don't know. Either way.
Okay.
Thank you, everybody, for joining us today. And I want to thank Jason for being so honest and forthright with where he is in his job search. And if there's anything that you guys need, please don't hesitate to reach out to either one of us. Good luck and take care and have a great day. Bye.
Thanks. Bye.
Jason, hang on for just a second.
Okay.